Hey, and welcome back to another episode of Loud Librarians, where we talk about, ponder, and discuss in detail all the library things, with this first season taking you inside a very mysterious and mystifying world of copyright. I'm your host, Amber.
And I'm Hannah.
Hey, Hannah. So, in this episode, we'll be chatting about copyright in the classroom. But instead of just Hannah and I rambling about it, like we could usually do, we decided to bring in an expert and our very first pod guest.
Oh, yes, this is exciting stuff, Amber. Our guest is both the curator of university art and an adjunct faculty member instructing students on art history and museum studies here at Fordham University. She also has a PhD, that means she's a doctor, in classical, ancient, Mediterranean, and Near Eastern studies and archaeology. Well, excuse me, Miss Fancy Pants.
Super fancy. But aside from the amazing professional accomplishments, our guest is just an all-around fab lady that is obsessed with dogs, my mom, or that woman, the Rolling Stones, and is a lover of all the soups. Welcome, Jennifer Udell, to the pod.
So, Jen. Hello.
Hey, Hannah.
Hey. Okay.
Jen.
Hey, Amber.
I'm so excited to have you here
Super.
today.
I am so excited to be
yes.
here.
Now, let's get to it. Let's get to business.
Let's get on it.
Yeah.
Okay,
Let's
Jen,
do this
we have
thing.
to ask. We've been dying to know.
Serious question right
If
here.
today you were a book, what would the title of your book be?
It would be called What Goes On in My Mind, Dogs, the Rolling Stones, food, and old things.
I love it.
It's a little long, though.
I'd read it.
I'd reach for that book.
It's also, What Goes On is also a riff on a Velvet Underground song. It's not a riff, it's actually the name of the song, What Goes On. Anyway, it's a 3-chord wonder.
What
Anyhow,
goes on and
Yeah, you
only
should-
reads mine.
You should pull that up someday and listen to it. You would love it, Amber.
Ooh, I will.
Yeah.
We will definitely
Nice.
listen to it independently, but
Okay.
not on here.
Okay.
Yeah, copyright.
Right, copyright.
I think that sounds like a great book.
Yeah.
I guess if I were a book today, the book title would be "But First Coffee," and it would be engraved on a wooden plank, and the sequel would be something about more coffee or something.
Yeah.
That makes sense for a sequel.
Sure.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
My title will be Yikes. Because,
Yikes.
yikes.
Right?
Would you include an exclamation point?
No. I don't
No.
think you should.
Period.
Yeah.
Yikes, period. I love a
Period.
period in the title.
Yeah.
That's good. And the semicolon. Oh, jeez.
Especially because with yikes, you expect an exclamation point.
Absolutely.
So it becomes like,
What's
it's
this about?
very Amber. It's so Amber.
It's 1000% Amber.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I love it.
Yeah, me too.
I'd read it.
We have a winner. We
Yeah.
have a winner. Mm-hmm.
So, Jen,
Yeah.
you are the curator of university art. How did you get into this position? What initially piqued your interest about this topic and field?
Goodness. That's a very long question. So what part do you want me to answer first? How long I've been in the job, perhaps? Start that.
Yeah, it's
Sure.
simple, I guess.
A long time.
Yeah.
I started in 2007, which is a long time.
Jen.
And and I was working at the Metropolitan Museum of Art at the
Nice.
time. I was still working on my dissertation at the time, and then a job was posted for, it wasn't so much a job as it was listed as a postdoctoral position that had to do with taking this mysterious collection, new gift of antiquities that had been given to Fordham and creating a museum out of this collection, publishing it, teaching off of it. So, it seemed like a good fit for me. So that's how I learned about the job. Actually, a curator at the Met handed me the job listing and said, this might be interesting to you. So I filled out an application in September of 2006, heard not a peep until May of 2007.
Oh, no.
Very typical for academia.
Yeah, And then I interviewed with the then university librarian at the time, and was hired, and there you go. So there's how I arrived at Fordham, and in terms of how I got interested in old broken things, as my good friend Greg Waldrop calls them. Who doesn't love old broken things, right?
I'm an old broken thing.
Oh, now that's
As long
the
as it's not my
silliest
heart.
thing. Oh my goodness,
My soul.
my soul. Yes.
We're very
Stop dragging my heart around. I'm gonna try to incorporate rock and roll lyrics
Oh my God, that would
into
be
everything I say. No,
Do
I'm
it.
not. No, I'm not. That'll be really boring and annoying. So anyway, yes.
I think
I just have to say that I am not an expert in ancient Near Eastern art. So I just wanted to amend my list of
Got you.
expertise. I am a PhD in classical art and archaeology with focus on Greek and Roman art, and my dissertation was written in the Rip Snorton field of Greek vase painting, which I love, and a lot of people find boring. But there it is. But then they take my class, and then they realize it's not boring anymore.
I don't find that boring, and I think if I was in your class, it would only be more exciting.
It would be if you were in my
so-
class and Amber in my class. It would be. That would be amazing.
I would actually show up.
That
Amber might be a good student. I tend to be the annoying, argumentative one in the back of the
I
class.
love argumentative.
Oh, okay. That's usually my style.
I
which
love
is,
argumentative.
I guess not something you have to worry about then, since we just somewhat all work together. But
That's right.
anyways, so speaking of your classroom
Yeah.
and instruction tendencies here, and since we are focusing on copyright this season, how much of an impact would you say copyright has on the material you are willing to share in your classes?
Well, most images of ancient art are public domain, right? So you can get almost any high-res image off a museum database, and they're free for downloading. Some places charge, some places charge for download, but most places don't. The Met has a huge database of images that are downloadable and free. Same with the British Museum, same with the Louvre. So imagery is not hard. Even published academic work is not difficult because the students have access through JSTOR. Anything I assign, they can download for free. So I don't run into it there. Occasionally, one needs to be careful if I scan chapters of books, right, to not supersede the limit. But generally, it doesn't affect me that much, which maybe isn't what you want to hear. But
No, it's good. I mean, because it shows copyright. I think it's that's why we're so excited to have you here, because I think people tend to think of it just specifically with certain mediums, like textual works and whatnot, but it expands beyond that, which is something that you might come across more.
Right. So I haven't had tons of problems. I haven't had a lot of problems with it. It's not been limiting. Bumping up against copyright laws has not been limiting to me. It's easy to work within the bounds of it. What's applicable, what's allowable, permissible. That's the word. Permissible is the word. Use your words. Words are hard.
They're really hard.
Yeah.
I feel like all we talk about is or we have discussed how hard words and reading has been and whatnot between the two of us on this podcast, which is maybe not something everyone wants to hear coming from people who work in the library. But what are you going to do?
Putting a sentence together is hard.
It is hard. Yeah. Which is why a lot of students are shockingly turning to ChatGPT, which is the devil. I've said it's the devil. People will disagree.
So Jen, have you ever had to obtain permission from the copyright holder to use an item in your instruction?
Not in my instruction, but in my dissertation.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're just writing for permission to reproduce an image. Usually it's just written. There's no payment. If it's a work that's really purely for academic purposes, and you're not selling it, the procedure is pretty straightforward and easy. So I've had to, like, for instance, when I wrote my dissertation, I had to get images of an unpublished vase that was in what museum was it? It was some museum in Hungary, or maybe a museum in the Czech Republic. Anyway, it was an unpublished vase, and I had to get a permission to include it. And I guess that wasn't so much copyright because I don't know. Would that have been copyright? Just a permission to reproduce an image?
Yeah.
Okay, so they not only gave me permission, but they furnished the images, which was really nice, for free, because it was a dissertation. Okay. If it was a book, if it was a published book, I would have had to have paid, the publisher, that would have been an expense. But for research, for a dissertation, it was free.
Okay.
Yeah.
So would you say that there's it might be I don't know if you've noticed an obvious difference, or would you say it's easier to obtain or use copyrighted material for classroom instruction versus say your own personal use and research?
I haven't noticed much of a difference.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, you do work in academia anyway, so it might just be easier to work with.
There's a lot of leeway for classroom instruction. In fact, all of those databases that I mentioned, those museum databases specifically say may be used only for classroom instruction, illustrating a lecture, but, if you're putting it in a book that will be sold, then you're looking at different set of what's the word I'm looking for? A different set of rules? Rules, maybe?
Rules is simple enough. Permissible rules.
Yeah.
Permissible rules.
There's a lot of flexibility for classroom instruction and illustrated lectures in an academic context. Right? So.
Yeah.
And I've never had to write an entity to get an image or permission for classroom instruction. That stuff's all easily obtained from, the interweb, the worldwide interweb.
Yeah, based on the principles of fair use, which we started to discuss last episode, and we'll get more into as the season progresses.
Oh, how interesting.
Yeah, that's coming up. And from your experience, what possible repercussions can copyright violations have on an academic institution and instructors in art history?
Well, if you are scanning an entire book and emailing a PDF to your students under the table and publishers get wind of it, that's no good. I don't know what's going to happen, but I know you'll get in trouble.
Oh my God.
That's specifically the thing that I think publishers keep an eye on, is that type of sort of torrenting books and downloading material that way and printing it and sending it under the table to students. I don't know what's going to happen. I know I can just imagine something would happen. I imagine there would be blowback, a general institutional blowback, but I don't know. That's never happened to me.
Thankfully.
Do you know of anyone that's...
No.
I don't want to know.
Nope, don't
I
know.
know.
Nothing. No, this
see
is all
nothing there.
hypothetical, very hypothetical.
Very hypothetical.
No, of course not.
I know.
Why are you asking me this question? Moving on.
We work in the
Moving on.
library. I mean, moving on. Next question. So Jen, obviously, we can't see the future here, but do you foresee as we since we live in or we have been living in an information age and a digital sphere, which is
Yes.
only kind of, getting more and more geared towards, more advanced technology. You mentioned ChatGPT earlier, and that's also could be a different conversation. But, we are wondering if, do you foresee any potential obstacles or changes in the way that you encounter copyright law through your way of teaching or even in the field of art history in general?
No. I don't. That's such that's a question that's so above my pay grade. I mean, because I have so little to do with copyright infringement and copyright laws just don't affect antiquities as much, I think, because so much of the material is public domain. Mm-hmm. If I was teaching more of the contemporary art fields where there's all these questions about what constitutes art with those non-fungible token born digital weird things which I don't even understand, that I could see that is so evolving that and cultural property law and copyright and intellectual property law is really dealing with that aspect of art more than it is antiquities, which I said is just this is stuff that's been, for the most part, published and documented for over 100 years, right? So it's mostly public domain. So I don't come into contact with that issue so much. Where I would, if they started to really become draconian in how much you could share with students in terms of xeroxing, mimeographing. Remember that word?
What's the micro? What's the
Microfilm?
Microfilm.
Microfiche.
Microfiche.
I could see if suddenly there was a clampdown on how much you could share by scanning chapters. That could become problematic because art history textbooks are really expensive, and I try to be mindful of my students when I ask them to buy a book, that it's really the entire book is going to be useful. And the way so much art history is written now is it's mostly case study, right? So that you can excerpt a chapter and just kind of read a chapter as a standalone case study. And so there's not necessarily a need to buy an entire textbook. And I think at this point we're allowed a certain amount of pages to share before you bump up against copyright laws. But if that were to change, that could be a problem.
See.
How's that?
That was great.
That was great.
Was that good?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was so good. You read into the future because that was my next question.
Well,
what can you do to make materials more accessible to students aside from that? And you just answered it.
yeah. Well, I try.
Yeah.
Do they actually read what I send them? No, they don't. Well,
Yeah.
some do. Maybe I'll
Amber
cut
and I
that
would.
too.
Amber and I. Amber and I. I am Amber.
Oh, Amber's referring to herself in the third
In
person
third
now,
person.
which
I'm gonna
means
do that.
she's
no.
totally off the deep
This
end.
podcast is getting to her head.
Darling.
Well, then I guess on that note, is there anything else you would like to share or add with us today? And at this point, we can expand beyond, having anything to do with copyright or art history or teaching. Anything you'd like to share with us more today, and totally fine if the answer is no, since you've already given us more than enough of your knowledge.
I don't know. What do you want to know? What other questions off brand do you have?
Why
do you
are
wanna
you so
talk about?
cool? That's what I want to know.
It's all the soup.
It's the soup.
Oh, it's the gazpacho I make, which I brought today.
I knew it. That's kind of where I was
It's
hoping
the weather
this would
for
lead.
it.
It's Jen makes a great gazpacho.
But Hannah, I need to give you some to taste. You're
Oh, right.
kind to say that.
I
but-
assume she does. Because it's talked about often, so
Yeah.
kind of embarrassing if it wasn't.
We talk about it all the time.
It'd be-
Hannah and I
It'd be
talk
like
about
super
soup.
awkward if it was just ketchup.
Hannah said to me once, I feel like you like a soup lunch. And I said, you're right. I do like a soup lunch.
I think I was there for that conversation.
I think you were. I think you
Sometimes-
were. That's when you were sitting upstairs.
Yeah.
Sometimes the wisest conversations just only need the simplest words.
That's true.
Words,
Especially
again.
since words are hard. But Amber, in answer to your question,
Yes.
why am I so cool?
Yes.
I just don't know. I mean, the
That's
planets,
the best answer.
The planets aligned. You're so kind. I'm actually not. I'm actually a huge dork. But that's
cool.
good.
That's
we
something
like
that
that.
cool people say,
Yeah.
and we appreciate the
Well,
honesty. And
we do.
and you know, it's something else really cool about you, Jen.
What's
is
that, Hannah?
You brought with us today a great public domain song of the week.
Yes.
What do we have? What do we have here today?
Well, today I thought the outro could be Putting on the Ritz.
Something like this.
Something like, because we're all classy,
Oh.
we're ritzy.
Yes.
Written by Mr. Irving Berlin. The original was a 78 RPM. For those younglings who don't know what the hell I'm talking about, it's pre-Spotify vinyl. Recorded by Leo Reisman and his orchestra, with Lou Conrad slapping down some vocals in New York City on January 20th, 1930. Several artists have covered this song because it's a classic. It's part of the American Songbook, but most people recently might remember its star turn in Young Frankenstein with who was the actor? Peter Boyle playing Frankenstein. He was put on stage, dressed in a top hat as Frankenstein, and forced to perform this song. And hilarious. So I think everyone should, search for that movie, search for that clip on the YouTube, where I believe there will not be copyright infringement. And so yeah, good choice, right? Putting on the Ritz.
Oh my
We'd
God.
love to hear it.
Yeah,
We'd like to once again thank Jennifer for joining us here on Loud Librarians.
Yay, Loud
Yay!
Librarians.
Tune in next week and follow us at Loud Librarians Pod on the gram. See you later.
Bye.
Bye.
If you're blue and you don't know where to go to, why don't you go where Harlem